The transport shuttle, Soul's Pride, glided through the cosmic void toward the massive crystalline structure floating in space. Ambassador Lihana pressed her face against the porthole, watching the Galactic Council station grow larger with each passing moment. The structure twisted and turned like a living jewel, its surfaces reflecting the light of 3 different suns. "First time seeing Nexus Prime?" asked Captain Cho Min-ho from the pilot's seat. His weathered hands gripped the controls as automated docking systems took over their small craft. "First time representing humanity to beings who think we're barely more than talking animals," Hana replied, smoothing down her black diplomatic uniform. The fabric felt strange against her skin, woven with materials from 6 different worlds to show respect for galactic customs. The shuttle shuddered as it passed through the station's energy barriers. Outside, massive alien vessels hung in perfect formation like metal predators circling their prey. A reptilian empire dreadnought stretched nearly 2 kilometers long, its hull scarred from countless battles. Beside it floated a bioship from the Fungal Collective, its living walls pulsing with bioluminescent patterns that hurt to look at directly. "Remember the briefing," Captain Cho said as the docking clamps engaged with a metallic clang. "These species have been spacefaring since before humans discovered agriculture. They see us as children playing with dangerous toys." Hana stood and checked her equipment one final time. No weapons were allowed in the council chambers, but her diplomatic pouch contained something far more dangerous than any gun: information. Data about humanity that would either secure their future or doom their species forever. The airlock cycled with a hiss of escaping atmosphere. Hana stepped onto the crystalline deck of Nexus Prime, her boots making soft clicking sounds against the strange material that seemed to shift colors with each step. The walls around her shimmered like liquid mercury, displaying holographic images of countless worlds and civilizations. 12 pedestals rose from the floor in a perfect circle, each one designed to accommodate a different alien physiology. The representatives of the galaxy's ruling species waited in their designated spots, some floating, others coiled on specialized platforms, all of them radiating an aura of ancient power and barely contained contempt. Chancellor Velthor of the Aquatic Dominion dominated the largest pedestal, his massive form contained within a tank of bubbling liquid. Gill slits along his neck fluttered as his translation device activated, converting his underwater speech into words Hana could understand. "Welcome, primitive one," the Chancellor gurgled, his bulbous eyes fixed on the human diplomat like a predator studying its next meal. "You stand before beings who ruled the stars when your world was nothing but molten rock. You will now perform the ritual of submission before your betters." The other representatives shifted in their positions, mechanical limbs clicking, energy, fields humming, bioluminescent patches pulsing with anticipation. For 50,000 years, every new species had knelt before this assembly. The submission ritual was more than ceremony. It was a demonstration of the natural order that kept the galaxy stable. Hana looked around the circle, taking in each alien form. The insectoid hive queen's compound eyes tracked her every movement. The machine collective's representative stood motionless, sensors scanning for any sign of weakness. A being of pure energy from the stellar nomads flickered between dimensions, its form barely contained by the station's reality anchors. "I understand the significance of this moment," Hana said, her voice carrying clearly through the chamber's acoustic systems. "But humans have a saying: we bow to no one." She clasped her hands behind her back and met Chancellor Velthor's alien gaze without flinching. The water in his tank began to bubble more violently as his emotional state shifted from amusement to anger. The silence that followed was deafening. Ancient beings who had witnessed the birth and death of civilizations stared at this small human woman who dared to defy 50 millennia of precedent. Some had expected defiance, but not this calm, absolute refusal to acknowledge their supremacy. Mordeth of the Psychic Collective leaned forward on his crystalline pedestal. His form resembled a living gemstone, faceted surfaces reflecting the chamber's lights in hypnotic patterns. Without warning, he launched a telepathic assault designed to shatter Hana's mind and force her into submission. The psychic attack struck something it had never encountered before. Where most species had minds like flowing water that could be shaped and controlled, the human consciousness was like striking solid bedrock. Mordith's mental probe bounced off harmlessly, leaving him stunned and confused. "Impossible," he whispered, his crystal form flickering between dimensions as his concentration wavered. "No organic mind can resist the collective's influence." Hana smiled, an expression that somehow managed to be both diplomatic and threatening at the same time. "You've never met a human before. We're full of surprises." The chamber erupted in alien sounds as representatives communicated in their native languages, translation systems struggling to keep up with the flood of shocked exclamations and urgent questions. The massive holographic display materialized in the center of the council chambers, showing Earth as a blue marble suspended in the cosmic darkness. Numbers and statistics floated around the planet like digital vultures, each one representing a piece of humanity's future being carved away. "The terms are generous for such a young species," Chancellor Velthor announced, his aquatic form rippling with satisfaction inside his containment tank. "Tributary status grants you protection under galactic law. 60% resource taxation ensures proper contribution to galactic stability. Population limits of 5 billion will prevent your kind from spreading like a plague across civilized space." Ambassador Lee Hana stood perfectly still as the terms washed over her like cold water. Around the chamber, the 12 ruling species watched with the patience of ancient predators. They had done this dance countless times before with countless civilizations. The script never changed. The fungal collective's representative, a towering mass of interconnected mushroom-like structures, released spores that translated into words. "Accept these terms, and humanity will prosper under our guidance. Refuse and face the consequences that have befallen over 300 rebellious species." Behind the main delegation, Park Jin-woo shifted in his seat. The military attaché had spent the last hour studying each alien representative, noting weapons, defensive positions, and potential weak points. Old habits from his days commanding Earth's orbital defense platforms died hard. "We appreciate the Council's generosity," Hana said, her tone carefully neutral. "However, we have a counter-proposal." The chamber fell silent except for the humming of life support systems and the distant pulse of the station's massive engines. Jin-woo leaned forward, his dress uniform crisp and military precise despite the gravity of the moment. "Full membership with voting rights," he stated simply. The reaction was immediate and explosive. Laughter erupted from 12 different species, creating a cacophony of sounds that the translation system struggled to process. The insectoid hive queen Zalandra's compound eyes gleamed with amusement as her mandibles clicked in what passed for mirth among her kind. "Your species discovered fire yesterday in galactic terms," she chittered, her voice carrying the authority of billions of connected minds. "You crawled out of your gravity well less than a century ago. What could you possibly offer beings who have ruled the stars since before your sun was born?" The Machine Collective's representative, a towering construct of black metal and glowing circuits, processed data streams at superhuman speed. "Analysis complete. Human civilization lacks advanced technology, psychic abilities, dimensional manipulation, or significant military assets. Probability of meaningful contribution, 0.001%. General Korthax of the Reptilian." Empire uncoiled his massive form, scales scraping against his platform with a sound like grinding stone. His yellow eyes fixed on the human delegation with predatory interest. "Perhaps they seek entertainment value. It has been centuries since we witnessed a proper planetary sterilization." Jinwoo's expression didn't change, but his hands moved to rest on the sealed diplomatic pouch at his side. Inside that innocuous container lay humanity's real negotiating position, one that would either secure their freedom or guarantee their destruction. Ambassador Hana activated her holographic display with a gesture that seemed almost casual. The peaceful image of Earth dissolved, replaced by something far more disturbing. Cities burning under nuclear fire, soldiers advancing through poison, gas clouds, orbital bombardments turning landscapes into glass craters. "We offer perspective," Hana said, her voice cutting through the alien laughter like a blade. While you've enjoyed 50,000 years of peace under your established order, we've spent 10,000 years perfecting the art of war. Nuclear weapons, biological warfare, chemical agents, orbital bombardment. We've found over 4,000 ways to kill members of our own species. The laughter died as if someone had flipped a switch. The holographic display continued its grim slideshow, showing humanity's violent history in stark detail. Tank battles across frozen wastelands, submarine warfare in crushing ocean depths, fighter craft dueling in the thin atmosphere above mountain peaks. General Korthax leaned forward, his reptilian features twisting with confusion. Your species wages war against itself, deliberately. Competition breeds excellence, Jinwu replied quietly, his military training evident in every word. We've fought wars over resources, territory, ideology, religion, and sometimes just because we were bored. Every conflict taught us something new about killing efficiently. The Machine Collective's representative processed this information with visible difficulty, its optical sensors flickering as it attempted to understand such systematic self-destruction. Illogical. Species survival requires unity against external threats. Does it? Hana asked, advancing the display to show massive human armies working together despite previous conflicts. Or does it require the ability to adapt, to overcome any obstacle, to never surrender even when facing impossible odds? The stellar nomad, a being of pure energy that rarely spoke in council sessions, materialized more solidly than before. Show us your greatest victory, it demanded, its voice like the sound of solar winds. The holographic display shifted to footage of human space battles, primitive by galactic standards, but vicious in their intensity. Ships ramming each other. When weapons failed, crews fighting hand-to-hand in damaged corridors, vessels continuing to fire even as they broke apart under enemy bombardment. This is our greatest victory, Hana explained, learning that we could work together despite our differences. Every human conflict ended the same way, with former enemies becoming allies against the next threat. We don't just fight, we adapt, we overcome, and we never stay defeated. The chamber filled with the sound of alien languages as representatives communicated in rapid, urgent tones. Translation systems overloaded, trying to keep up with the flood of shocked commentary and tactical assessments. Chancellor Velthor's tank bubbled violently as his emotional state shifted. Madness. No species survives by constantly warring with itself. We did, Jinwu said simply. And now we're here. General Korthax uncoiled from his platform like a serpent preparing to strike, his massive form casting shadows across the crystalline floor. The Reptilian Empire's supreme military commander stood 8 feet tall, his emerald scales catching the light from the station's artificial suns. Ancient battle scars crisscrossed his armored hide, each one a testament to centuries of galactic conquest. Humans, he hissed, his forked tongue tasting the air for signs of fear. You speak of war as if you understand its true meaning. Your primitive conflicts are nothing more than children playing with sticks and stones. The general's clawed hands moved across a control interface built into his platform. The chamber's main holographic display flickered to life, showing the vastness of space around a beautiful blue-green world. Cities sparkled like jewels across the planet's surface, and orbital stations hung in perfect geometric patterns above the atmosphere. Observe the fate of the Kalari Confederation, Korthax announced, his voice carrying the weight of absolute authority. They too believed they could defy the Council's wisdom. A reptilian dreadnought materialized in the display, its dark hull stretching nearly 3 kilometers from bow to stern. The massive warship bristled with weapon systems that humanity had never dreamed possible. Energy cannons capable of melting continental plates, gravity bombs that could collapse matter into microscopic points, quantum disruptors that unraveled the very fabric of reality. The Eternal Fang, Korthax said with obvious pride. Flagship of the reptilian battle fleet, watch and learn what true power looks like. The dreadnought's weapons began to charge, energy building to levels that made the chamber's sensors emit warning sounds. Beams of concentrated destruction lanced out from the warship, striking the planet's surface with surgical precision. Continents cracked like eggshells. Oceans boiled, away into steam. The planet's core destabilized, sending shockwaves through the crust that shattered everything the Kalari had built over millennia. Within minutes, what had once been a thriving world became nothing more than the expanding field of asteroids, glowing, with residual heat from their violent birth. Billions of lives extinguished in the blink of an eye, their entire civilization reduced to cosmic debris. "This is what happens to species that defy the Council," Korthax declared, his yellow eyes fixed on the human delegation. "Your Earth would fare no better against our fleet. Perhaps we should demonstrate on one of your colony worlds first, so you understand the consequences of continued defiance." The other Council members nodded in approval, their various forms expressing satisfaction in ways unique to their species. The Machine Collective's representative emitted satisfied electronic pulses. The Fungal Collective released spores that smelled of victory. The Aquatic Dominion's Chancellor rippled his fins in aquatic applause. Ambassador Lihana remained perfectly composed, her diplomatic training allowing her to watch the destruction of an entire world without flinching. Beside her, Park Jin-woo's expression never changed, though his hands clenched slightly at his sides. But it was Kim So-jin, the intelligence officer, who responded first. "Impressive," she said, her tone so calm it was almost conversational. "May I show you something?" Without waiting for permission, So-jin activated her own data pad. The holographic display shifted, replacing the image of planetary destruction with something far more disturbing. Grainy black and white footage from Earth's bloody history began to play, accompanied by audio recordings that the translation systems struggled to process. The first image showed a mushroom cloud rising above a city, its terrible beauty captured in stark monochrome. Then another explosion and another, each one demonstrating humanity's mastery of atomic destruction. The footage shifted to show trenches filled with poison gas, soldiers stumbling blindly through chemical clouds that ate through their protective equipment like acid. Cities burned under waves of aerial bombardment, their populations fleeing through, streets lit by falling fire. Massive armies clashed across frozen landscapes, their weapons turning snow red with blood. Submarine warfare played out in the crushing depths of Earth's oceans, with vessels hunting each other through underwater. "Mountains and thermal vents. We call this Tuesday," So-jin said with the same calm tone she might use to discuss the weather. "Every weapon you've shown us, we invented before we left our homeworld. Nuclear fusion, chemical warfare, biological agents, orbital bombardment. We've been perfecting these techniques for centuries." The council chamber fell silent, except for the distant hum of the station's engines. The concept being presented was so alien to their experience that several representatives seemed to be having difficulty processing it. Species that achieved dominance through overwhelming force against external enemies, not internal conflicts. General Korthax's scales shifted color slightly, a sign of confusion among his kind. "You possess planet-killing weapons and use them against your own species." "Used," Park Jin-woo corrected quietly. Past tense. "We discovered nuclear fission in 1938, achieved fusion by 1952, and had enough weapons to destroy our world several times over by 1960. Then we stopped." The Machine Collective's representative processed this information with visible difficulty, its optical sensors flickering rapidly. "Stopped. Analysis indicates continued weapons development among human populations. We chose restraint," Ambassador Hana explained, stepping forward to address the entire council. "A species that destroys itself cannot explore the stars. We learned to control our worst impulses not because we lacked the power to indulge them, but because we understood the consequences." Chancellor Velthor's translation device struggled with concepts that had no equivalent in his species' language. "You created world-ending weapons and voluntarily ceased their use? This defies all logical military doctrine." "Does it?" So-jin asked, advancing the display to show Earth's current state. Green continents, blue oceans, white clouds swirling in perfect atmospheric patterns. "We could have ended everything 100 times over. Instead, we chose to reach for the stars." The temperature in the council chamber dropped by several degrees, as reality itself seemed to bend and twist. Ancient warning systems throughout Nexus Prime began to sound, their alarms echoing through corridors that had remained silent for millennia. The crystalline walls pulsed with energy patterns that hurt to look at directly, and several of the younger species representatives backed away from the chamber's center. Something was manifesting that was older than stars, older than planets, older than most of the matter in the known universe. The architect materialized slowly, its form shifting between dimensions that mortal minds couldn't fully comprehend. One moment, it appeared as a swirling galaxy of pure light. The next, as geometric, patterns that existed in 17 different dimensions simultaneously. When it finally stabilized into something the Council's reality anchors could contain, it resembled a constantly shifting constellation of brilliant stars connected by threads of living energy. "I have been summoned from the deep archive," the architect spoke, its voice resonating through subspace frequencies that made the station's hull vibrate. "The Council disturbs my contemplation of cosmic mathematics with news of contamination." General Corthax, despite his considerable size and battle experience, seemed to shrink in the presence of this ancient being. "Great Architect, the human species refuses submission protocols. They threaten galactic stability with their chaotic nature." The architect's form pulsed with colors that existed beyond the visible spectrum. "I have observed their development through quantum entanglement sensors. Fascinating in their destructive potential, but ultimately insignificant. They are bacteria in the galactic ecosystem." Ambassador Lihana maintained her diplomatic composure even as she felt the weight of cosmic attention focusing on her. This being had existed when her galaxy was nothing but dust and hydrogen gas, had watched the birth and death of countless civilizations across the universe. "The human contamination must be sterilized," the architect declared, with the casual indifference of someone discussing the weather. "I have cleansed 1,000 worlds of problematic species. Their removal will require approximately 4 standard galactic hours using conventional stellar ignition techniques." The casual mention of destroying humanity's sun sent ripples of shock through the assembled representatives. Even species accustomed to planetary warfare seemed disturbed by the architect's matter-of-fact approach to genocide on a stellar scale. Hana's expression didn't change by so much as a muscle twitch. That would be inadvisable. The architect's energy form contracted slightly, its attention focusing on the small human woman like a cosmic microscope examining an interesting specimen. "You threaten me, insect? I was calculating the orbital mechanics of galactic clusters when your species was still single-celled organisms floating in primordial soup." Kim So-jin stepped forward, her intelligence officer training allowing her to function even under the scrutiny of a cosmic entity. She activated her data pad, and the chamber's holographic systems struggled to display information that seemed to exist in multiple dimensions simultaneously. Every human ship, colony, and installation throughout the galaxy carries quantum communicators linked to a dead man's switch, she announced, her voice steady despite the magnitude of what she was revealing. "If Earth's sun goes dark, if our homeworld dies, if humanity faces extinction, detailed intelligence packages get transmitted simultaneously to human operatives embedded throughout Council territories." The revelation struck the assembled representatives like a physical blow. Several species made sounds of alarm in their native languages, while others began rapid calculations of the implications. The Machine Collective's representative processed the data at superhuman speed, its optical sensors flashing in patterns that indicated extreme computational stress. Park Jin-woo continued where Sojin left off, his military background evident, in the precise way he delivered strategic information. "We've been studying you for decades. Every Council species, every homeworld, every military installation, every tactical weakness and strategic vulnerability. The locations of your nursery, worlds, your industrial centers, your government seats, we know where your leaders sleep at night." The architect's energy form flickered in what might have been surprise, though emotions were difficult to read in a being of pure cosmic force. "Impossible. Our security networks span dimensions. No primitive species could penetrate our defensive systems." Is designed to stop conquerors, not neighbors, Ambassador Hana interrupted smoothly, stepping into the center of the chamber, despite the reality-warping effects of the architect's presence. We didn't come to your worlds as invaders. We came as friends carrying gifts and stayed as students. Who suspects the maintenance worker fixing your orbital platforms? Who questions the cultural exchange student learning your languages? Sojin activated another display, showing seemingly innocent scenes from across the galaxy. Human technicians working on reptilian space stations, human researchers studying alongside fungal collective scientists, human diplomats attending cultural ceremonies on aquatic dominion worlds, human traders selling earth goods in machine collective markets, Li Dongmin, sanitation engineer on Reptilian Station 7, Sojin said, highlighting one figure among many. Also a former Earth Special Forces operative with expertise in demolitions, Park Soo-young, agricultural specialist with the Fungal Collective, former intelligence analyst who memorized the genetic codes of their reproduction cycles, Choi Min-soo, cultural attaché to the Aquatic Dominion, expert in underwater warfare and submarine tactics. The list continued, each name representing another human who had spent years learning alien weaknesses while appearing to be nothing more than a helpful neighbor. The scope of the infiltration became clear as the display showed human faces scattered across hundreds of worlds, thousands of stations, countless installations throughout Council space. Chancellor Velthor's aquatic tank bubbled violently as his emotional state shifted from confidence to alarm. How many? Enough, Park Jin-woo replied simply. We've been preparing for this conversation since first contact protocols were established. Every human who left Earth carried 2 missions: learn everything possible about our new neighbors, and be ready to act if humanity faced extinction. The architect's form began to pulse more rapidly, energy patterns shifting between frequencies as it processed implications that even its cosmic intelligence found disturbing. A dead man's switch, mutually assured destruction on a galactic scale. We prefer to think of it as insurance, Hana said calmly. Humanity survives, and your civilizations continue unchanged. Humanity dies, and you discover just how much damage a supposedly primitive species can cause when they have nothing left to lose. The emergency session had stretched for 3 agonizing hours, conducted in languages that predated most star systems. Behind sealed doors, the 12 ruling species of the galaxy engaged in discussions that would reshape the cosmic order. Ancient alliances strained under the weight of new realities, while species that had never shown fear in 50,000 years of dominance now faced the unthinkable prospect of mutual annihilation. Through the crystalline walls of Nexus Prime, the human delegation could see the massive alien fleets repositioning themselves around the station. Reptilian dreadnoughts moved with predatory grace, their weapon systems powered but not yet targeted. Machine collective vessels hung in perfect geometric formations, their AI minds calculating millions of battle scenarios per second. Bioships, from the fungal collective, pulsed with bioluminescent warning patterns, ready to release spores that could devour entire star systems. But for the first time in galactic history, these overwhelming displays of force felt hollow. Every species present now understood that destroying humanity would cost them everything they had built across millennia of careful expansion and control. Ambassador Li Hana stood at the observation deck, watching distant stars wheel slowly past, as the station maintained its orbit around Nexus Prime. The ancient artificial world below showed no signs of the cosmic upheaval taking place in the chambers above its surface. Cities of crystal and living metal continued their eternal dance, their inhabitants unaware that the very foundations of galactic civilization were shifting beneath their feet. They're scared, Park Jin-woo observed, joining her at the transparent wall. I can see it in their tactical deployments. Every fleet is positioned for maximum defensive capability, not offensive action. Kim So-jin monitored communications channels on her portable device, intercepting fragments of alien conversations that her translation software struggled to decode. Fear is the right word. They're not just worried about military retaliation. They're terrified of the precedent we've set. The chamber doors finally opened with a harmonious chime that resonated through multiple dimensions. The 12 species filed back to their designated platforms, their movements lacking the confident swagger they had displayed earlier. Even the architect seemed diminished, its energy form flickering uncertainly between states of matter. Chancellor Velthor's aquatic tank bubbled softly as he prepared to speak. Gone was the arrogant tone that had marked their earlier interactions, replaced by something that sounded almost like respect. The Council has reached a decision regarding humanity's place in galactic civilization. General Korthax uncoiled from his platform, his scales having shifted to darker colors that indicated stress among his species. The vote was closer than anticipated. Several species required extensive persuasion to accept the new reality. The Machine Collective's representative processed data streams at visible speeds, its optical sensors flickering with what might have been uncertainty. Analysis complete. The probability of successful human pacification through conventional means has been calculated at 0.0001%. Alternative strategies must be implemented. Ambassador Hana stepped forward, her diplomatic training allowing her to project calm confidence, even as the fate of her entire species hung in the balance. We await the Council's decision. Chancellor Velthor's translation device conveyed his words with mechanical precision, though the underlying emotional currents were impossible to miss. The Council offers humanity protected autonomous species status, full sovereignty over all human territories, no resource taxation, no population controls, and a permanent seat on this governing body with full voting rights. The offer was unprecedented in galactic history. No species had ever been granted such terms without first proving their dominance through overwhelming military force. The implications rippled through the chamber as representatives exchanged glances and subtle communications in their native languages. Hana nodded slowly, her expression revealing nothing of the relief she felt at avoiding humanity's extinction. The terms are acceptable with one addition. Any species that threatens another with extinction must answer to humanity. The chamber erupted in sounds of alien alarm. General Korthax's scales rippled with disbelief as he processed the audacious demand. You would police the galaxy? Set yourselves up as arbiters of life and death for civilizations that existed before your world was formed. Park Jin-woo stepped beside his ambassador, his military bearing evident in every line of his posture. We would protect it. Someone has to. For 50,000 years, you've maintained order through fear and the threat of annihilation. We've seen what that leads to, and we won't allow it to continue. The stellar nomad's energy form pulsed with frequencies that made the station's reality anchors strain to maintain dimensional stability. The humans seek to become the galaxy's conscience. Interesting. Most species lose their moral flexibility as they gain power. We're not most species, Kim So-jin replied quietly. We learned the hard way that power without responsibility leads to destruction. Someone needs to ask the hard questions when civilizations face extinction. The council members communicated rapidly in their native languages, translation systems overloading, as they tried to process the flood of urgent discussions. Ancient alliances were being re-evaluated. Power structures that had remained unchanged for millennia were being questioned for the first time in galactic memory. Finally, Chancellor Velthor's voice cut through the chaos. The amendment is accepted. Humanity will serve as the galaxy's protector against extinction-level threats. As the human delegation prepared to leave Nexus Prime, the ancient species watched in stunned silence. The shuttle Soul's Pride approached the docking bay, its small form dwarfed by the massive alien vessels surrounding the station. But size no longer mattered in the new galactic order. The architect's energy form pulsed weakly as it observed the departing humans. What manner of beings are these humans? They face cosmic powers with the calm of those who have already accepted their own mortality. Chancellor Velthor moved to the observation port, watching the human shuttle accelerate toward the jump point that would carry them back to Earth. The kind that look at gods and ask them where they get the right to decide who lives and dies. The galaxy's power structure had shifted forever, built now on the foundation of humanity's terrifying determination to remain free. The age of unquestioned dominance was over. replaced by something that had never existed in the cosmos before, a species that refused to kneel, refused to submit, and refused to allow others to face extinction alone. As the Soul's Pride disappeared into hyperspace, carrying news of humanity's new role to Earth, the Council members began the long process of adapting to a universe where someone would finally hold them accountable for their actions. The end.